The tragic collapse of the Ashford building, resulting in the loss of 4 workmen's lives, highlights the dire consequences of inadequate safety management during refurbishment. The disaster was traced to the removal of crucial structural elements, a mistake rooted in poor oversight and a lack of proper risk assessment. Implementing evidence-based management and the ESHA approach could have averted such tragedy by ensuring safety protocols were informed by past incidents and best practices, ultimately safeguarding both workers and buildings. The case of Ashford building, where about 4 workmen were impacted, resulting to their death because of the collapse of the building, was because of the sheer incompetence of the construction workforce. A report published stated that there was no problem from a long time since the load of the bricks above was disseminated through the building by the adjacent window frames and blockwork. When refurbishment started, the workers began removing this blockwork, increasing the structural load on light-weighted concrete blocks. It resulted in therapid and disastrous collapse of about 2/3 of the building. It was a sheer irresponsibility of the people who were engaged in this construction work, and it was all on the management, as per the case study which resulted in the death of 4 workmen. The accident could have been avoided if ESHA approach along with EBM had been implemented. It has been learnt from this research that EBM for safety management for the building refurbishment is the most effective method. This is because this method helps in facilitation about information and data collected from the accidents, as well as failures and innovative designs. It has also been learnt that ESHA is helpful for safety management in the building refurbishment. Based on the research undertaken, building refurbishment requires a lot of safety and consideration of several factors to ensure that all risks involved are managed effectively to minimize any dangers. It is intended particularly for clients in refurbishment firms who have limited experience of refurbishment in buildings, but it has lessons for more experienced experts. The entire study shows that the refurbishment industry needs to have the proper accessibility of the safety measurements and need to make good use of the safety management tools. The understanding developed through EBM and ESHA approach helps in analysing the situations that it is essential to consider safety management before refurbishment of any project. Thus, there needs to be a proper risk as well as the safety measurable policies which will ultimately help in governing the different measurements as well as to give the better productivity out of it. The healthy environment is crucial for the staffs that are working there. They need to be protected and secured enough. There need to be proper treatment regarding the hazardous wastes and at the same time the relevant enactment of the different rules and the procedures. However, this paper provides an ESHA approach to support the use of EBM in practice-oriented research into safety management for building refurbishment. A procedure to implement the framework to collect data and information from accidents and failures, as well as contemporary good practices and innovations. Also, to eventually derive useful lessons to apprise improved practice in safety management while building refurbishment. And a demonstration through a case study as to how ESHA approach can effectively support learning lessons from previous building refurbishment projects. It has also been identified that the theoretical approach and framework involved leads to a better understanding of the ways in which ESHA framework can be studied and applied to the process of refurbishment of the buildings. Through the following study, it aimed that the background of the refurbishment industry and the safety measures that are necessary is discussed. Further, it is aimed that the detailed study of ESHA and EBM approach is done with a case study for in-depth analysis. Refurbishment work represents some 41% of UK refurbishment activity overall, and it is considered to be more hazardous than new building refurbishment, qua 1988. Consideration of refurbishing the structures goes alongside the economic factor, which means spending less compared to setting up a new one, all the same. The mounting or escalated rate of refurbishment further reflects on the mounting risks as accidents became rampant in history. Apparently, Until such time reliable data of refurbishment accidents becomes available, it can be assumed that at least half of all refurbishment accidents occur during projects. The presumption, therefore, confronts proper establishment of procedural steps that can be applied in the refurbishment process. The practical aim of this paper is to use evidence-based analysis to provide a more secure framework for decisions and procedures to ensure safety. The consideration is not only felt in the refurbishment work is being undertaken, but also during the subsequent periods of building use, reuse, refitting and modification, and when further adaptations are undertaken until the time of demolition. The value of EBM in managing risks. Every year in the UK, the insurance companies which pay millions of pounds in claims, that is followed by the destruction of the buildings during the process of refurbishment, new construction and extension. The entire process entails substantial risks and dangers that might result in serious structural collapse, fires and security breaches as well. The entire process can cause project delays and amplified costs, ensuing undesirable pressure for the owners of the home as well as for the neighbours. Casperson et al., 1988. However, the risks seen at refurbishment sites are becoming a pressing issue for the developed country like UK that has a huge impact on the productivity of refurbishment industries of UK. It put a tremendous impact on the environment as well as on human life, and however, such issues can be resolved when the entire community will work collaboratively and implement new strategies of building refurbishment policies posed with evidence-based management, EBM framework, that enhances sustainability. It is important for every individual to understand the importance of identifying and pretending risks, so that it enables them in identifying and reducing the risks take place in refurbishment sites. By utilising EBM framework lessons and strategies, UK refurbishment industry can reduce risks at refurbishment sites in a systematic and operating process. On the other hand, the building refurbishment strategies recommended can be taken into consideration, which will make sure for selecting right techniques and tools in managing and reducing risks. Rousseau, 2006. This will also enable them to optimize production and select right materials to minimize the impact of refurbishment risks and collapses. Moreover, the EBM framework will ensure good work quality by maintaining sustainability in refurbishment site. Evidence-based management does not depend on experiences or disposition. The research is valid enough as it will motivate and suggest the refurbishment process in managing refurbishment risks using building refurbishment policies allows them to take effective measures to reduce refurbishment risks. The refurbishment industries in the UK need to implement their policies taken from EBM framework to achieve the sustainable goal. By adopting building refurbishment techniques and strategies, UK refurbishment industries can upgrade their quality of performance by making reasonable changes, which will lead towards success. EBM became a mainstream conception during the 1990s, and it started becoming acknowledged as an approach which considers and integrates the notion of ecological as well as socio-economic connectivity along with holism. Also, EBM outlines sector-based approaches to managing the process of refurbishment. The basic principles which are followed through the EBM processes. Firstly, EBM focuses on a particular place and ecosystem and considers the varied activities and undertakings which impact the ecosystem, comprising physical as well as human activities associated with it. Secondly, EBM puts emphasis on safeguarding the structure of the ecosystem, its functions and approaches. Thirdly, EBM clearly integrates interconnectedness within the systems, acknowledging the significance of communication amongst the key services. Fourthly, EBM also addresses interconnectedness between environments like sea, land, and air. Fifthly, EBM incorporates the social, ecological, institutional, and economic perceptions, acknowledging their interdependence as well as mutual effects. Lastly, EBM addresses the management sectors and also contemplates on significant relationships and interactions amongst constituents of the social system. highlighting the necessity for combined governance procedures. Please like, follow, and subscribe.